Okay, and we're recording.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our presentation. We're going to be talking about our multilingual teaching activity with me, Dylan. I have Faye, Chris, and Laura also helping us out. All right, so for our activity, we came up with, or we were borrowing a translingual news jigsaw. So basically it involves students in an international, or sorry, in a multilingual classroom. They pick out a international news story that's very big and popular, something that's happening across the world, and they have to research the news story in their L2. So if their L1 is English, they cannot use English to gather information. They have to rely on their L2 knowledge to gather that information and then translanguage it. And every student is basically going to have a different language, and they have to all come together and kind of compare and contrast their findings about the same news story, just in different languages. So some of the pros and some of the things that happen with this translanguaging activity is that it's really easy for students to learn and to kind of get the hang of. It's really meant to encourage students to use their translanguaging as a resource when their communication in the L1 is difficult or just basically impossible. And also it gives them the practice they need to develop those translanguaging skills. So like I said, it is easy for students to grasp and kind of get the hang of. It can be used with a variety of students and teachers. I would say that it's probably best used with older children and adults too. So like maybe middle school and up. Intermediate, definitely to advanced L2 learners. Depends on the story and its complexity. But probably at least intermediate would work best with this kind of activity. And some of the materials needed would be computers for students to look up information, and some paper and pens and pencils just so they can write down their notes, anything interesting they came across in the reading that they found, so they can compare with their other students.
Okay, so this activity is based off of the concept of translanguaging, and that is the process where multilingual students can use all of their available languages that they know together as a system and a complete language collection. So on the right, here's an example of the teacher, I assume, is using both English and Hawaiian to introduce the student or explain, I think, is his art in the background. And so they use both languages as like one language, like a complete language repertoire. And then the benefits of translanguaging in a classroom include the students having a deeper understanding of both language and content, and they help develop positive self-identities with all of the learners' languages, and it's inclusive to minority groups, their language and culture. It's helpful for new bilingual students, especially from minority groups, to adapt to a different new learning environment. And with that, it reduces the risk of alienation at school for the students and creates a comfortable and safe environment or atmosphere for both the students and the teacher. So they see translanguaging as like a building block for both their home language and the new language that they're learning to help develop both of them.
Okay, so the purpose of this news art activity with translanguaging is it's another use of practicing their languages and using translanguaging. And they practice researching because they're looking up news articles. They summarize when they share the article with other students. And they're critically evaluating the text because they're having to compare the different texts and see what each one shares and what each one thinks is important about the news story. It raises awareness of other languages that other students have in the class. It helps them gain confidence with their second language or other language, and it helps raise awareness of current international news as well. And the procedures of the activity in more detail. So they choose an international news story, and learners are given 10 minutes to research the story online, not allowed to use English or L1 resources. And then they come back together to share what they've learned, the similarities, differences, what was emphasized in the different stories. And if the time allows, then each group could present their findings to the class, what they have learned from their comparison. Or alternatively, groups could create their own English language version of the story using their research, and then after look at English language versions and compare. And one cool feature of that is that sometimes students find that their multilingually informed article is more factual or more informative than the English articles. So an example activity.
Yeah, we have an example activity. So first it'll start with the chosen story. I chose this story about Britain's coronavirus deaths since it's something relevant to these times. And as you can see, only the title is presented here so that the students aren't able to read the English story yet. The students will research the same story, but in their own languages and take notes on the information presented in the articles. And here I have 3 different news articles in different languages, Japanese, Spanish, and Russian. And they all cover the same topic that was presented in the beginning. And then next, they will have a discussion, what was similar, what was different, what they found in their own article and what wasn't in someone else's article. And then, just see how it differs across the languages. And this is the optional one where they could create their own news story based on all that information. So on the left, I have a little bit of information from each article. And then on the right, I have the full news article in English, and they compare how much information was presented in their own articles compared to the ones in English, and they're making use of both of their languages. And these are our references, and that's our activity.
Hope y'all liked it.